If you have a dog who struggles with fear or panic around fireworks or storms, stick around, that's what we're going to be talking about today. My name is Karishma, I'm a dog trainer, behaviour expert, and alongside my colleagues at CCA, we help guardians of pet dogs with challenging behaviour problems, and we're going to talk today about fireworks. It's October, middle of October, we're coming up to Halloween, we're coming up to all of those big holidays that often lead to there being a lot of fireworks. And I want to talk today about sort of 4 main tips that I have for our guardians and for our community members around this time. And I've received some questions from the community, so I'll answer some of those as well. And before I go on, if this is interesting to you, if you're finding this useful, we have a free event. It's actually a 2-part event. The first one is this weekend and the second in a few weeks, and it's called Holidays with Sensitive Dogs, and it's all about this winter period with our dogs who might struggle with fear, anxiety, reactivity, aggression, etc. So you can comment or DM me the word festive and I will send you the sign up link to that. And I'd love to see you guys for like a lot more in depth. You know, we're talking like 3 hours of free content about this exact kind of stuff. So festive is the word you want to be sending me if you want to sign up for that. And like I said, it's completely free. I see some folks messaging. You should be getting DMs now if you're messaging that word. All right, so let's talk about fireworks and storm phobia. I'm lumping these two together because often there's just a huge amount of overlap. And I always say this is not going to be an alternative to working with a behaviour consultant or seeking a veterinary care. This is just meant to be general advice for the public. So let's dive in. We're talking about dogs who often have fear responses, panic responses to fireworks and storms, right? That looks really different depending on the dog. If you're watching now, let me know in the chat, what is it that your dog experiences? What is it, the behaviours that they experience? We have a few dogs that struggle with fireworks in our home and family. We have Emily, who when she hears fireworks and storms, she'll start panting and pacing around the house, and she'll maybe cry or whine and try to get to people. She wants to be near people, she wants to hide, and so she kind of does this like flight around the house situation, unable to settle, panting, wide eyes, and that will happen for the whole time if I've left uninterrupted that there's fireworks or storms. Or another example is Obi, who's our little Shih Tzu, and when there are fireworks or storms, he wants to be right on your chest and he'll shake and shake and shake. He doesn't really pant and pace, but he'll shake. And what we're really experiencing from these dogs, what we're seeing from these dogs, is a panic response, a genuine fear response. And often we use the word phobia because it is phobic in the way it presents in many cases. I want to go straight into solutions today. I don't want to hang around too much. So I'm going to dive straight into kind of the 4 areas that we often want to be looking at. Nice, and people are in the comments explaining what their dogs are doing. We're seeing the panting, the pacing, barking, running around, hyperactivity. It looks like a panic attack almost, right? And that's actually that's actually what it is. And I want to start there by just validating your dog's experience. Many dogs experience these panic at these particular triggers, right? There is something universal about that. We'll go into it in a minute. But the first thing I wanted to say is, you know, you can't just tell them to cut it out and have it go away. That's not going to work. The first thing we need to think about is safety, because when we have a genuine panic response, we are seeing lots of our dogs making decisions and performing behaviours that are really abnormal for them. So the first thing I have to think about is the safety of your dogs. Now, this period of time around the winter and the holidays is when we end up finding a lot of dogs getting lost on walks. They slip their leashes and their collars in moments of panic. In the yard, there's a storm and they panic and they dig under a fence, they climb over a fence, they do things that they are not normally doing because they're having a panic response. So I want you to think, to begin with, firstly, safety on walks, in the yard and in the home. Maybe we're not going to walk them in the evening anymore, because if you live somewhere particularly urban, like when I lived in Brooklyn, for example, random fireworks would go off at like 4 p.m. or like 6 p.m. 6 p.m. onwards, basically, there are chances of fireworks going off. So maybe we're walking at particular times of day. Maybe it's about the equipment that we're using. If you have a dog who's likely to slip out of something and run away, maybe we have a harness and a collar and we have 2 leashes on that dog. Would we have dogs that are potentially going to panic 2 leashes is a really nice safety mechanism. So if they slip out of one, you've got a second. And having a protocol in place, like if there are fireworks, if you get stuck in a storm, what do we do? You know, planning ahead as much as you can. And in the home, you know, often I'm being careful about leaving my dog alone around storm season or fireworks season, especially if my dog's sensitive to being left alone, because it's really common that dogs are left alone in the home or in the car, and then there are fireworks or there is a thunderstorm rolls in that we weren't aware of, and they have a panic moment, which then can affect them long term. So my number one consideration with fireworks and storm phobia is safety. And so I want you to literally write this down. On walks, in the yard, in the home, what are the three areas that I have to keep my dog safe over the holiday period? Am I going to be no longer leaving them unsupervised in the yard? Am I going to have them on a long line in the yard in case they can jump that fence? Am I going to be making sure that I'm checking the storm weather forecasts before leaving them alone for long periods of time, or having someone nearby who could go and check on them if there is storms, or what is it that we're going to be doing, right? And when we're working with our clients, a safety plan is the first thing that we come up with storm phobic and firework phobic dogs. And we work with clients on these challenges in private coaching programs and in our Feisty Fido course, but Feisty Fido is completely full and we only have openings for like January. So if you want to learn more about that, you can message me and get on the wait list for January. But if you need help right now, if you're like, I want to construct a safety plan, I need help, you can always DM us and talk about private coaching, jumping on a call with one of our colleagues and working through these challenges. So safety is number one. The second thing that I always go into with fireworks and storm phobic dogs and cases like that is, how do we set them up for success and then kind of help them recover after a stressful incident? And often that looks to decompression. And by decompression, I mean natural free movement in nature, walking, sniffing around in a natural place, on a long line, off leash. If I know there's going to be fireworks or a storm one night, I will often make the effort to get my dogs out in nature the day before and the day after. I bracket the unpleasant experience with this counter experience of them moving through nature, sniffing, decompressing. It's almost like, you know, you get to squeeze out the stress. And maybe you do that for yourself. If you have a stressful event, you might go to the gym before, you might go out for dinner with your friends after, right? We can do the same for our dogs. Maybe that's decompression in nature, lots of chews, lots of foraging activities and exercises that help them regulate themselves. You know your dogs, right? So, but decompression in nature is one of my top things. Like, I'm always trying to get my dogs out in nature around this period of time when there are lots of fireworks and storms, if they're struggling with that, because it will help them rebalance and it'll help them recover and prepare for these different events. So we have safety plans and we have decompression to help balance things out. The third area that we might be coaching our clients in at this point, especially, it's like October the 20-something. I don't know what the date is today, but we only have a week or two before Halloween starts, and then we'll have Guy Fawkes night. If you're in the UK, we'll have Thanksgiving, we'll have like, you know, Hanukkah, Diwali, Christmas, all of this stuff is around the corner. Often we are thinking, you know, if we have a dog that's extremely phobic and showing an extreme stress response, what can we do pharmaceutically to help this dog? Because honestly, phobias are no joke, panic attacks are no joke, and to me it is a welfare issue if we are not treating this medically. Chronic stress, extreme levels of stress is a medical issue, and so I want to be speaking with a veterinary team. Lots of veterinarians really understand how potent this can be in an animal's life in a negative way. So explaining to them, you know, they shake for hours, they cry, they're inconsolable. Literally explain to them exactly what it is that's going on with the dog, even write it down for them so that they can really understand. And then there'll be a whole host of things that you can use to help your dogs over the period. Some of those things are just like purchasable over the counter. People ask me this all the time, which is why I'm including this. Things like thunder shirts, Adaptil, CBD oil rescue remedy, these kinds of like over the counter stress reducers or stress relievers. Some of them have evidence of working in some cases. None of them will work in every case. And many of them will be just not even close to enough to help a dog who's having a full-blown panic response, you know? If we have someone who's having a full-blown panic response, like Emily will shake and pant for hours and hours and hours, you know, wafting a bit of lavender oil at them is probably not going to be super helpful. And I say that as someone who's had anxiety and sort of stress responses to that level myself, right? Other than these over-the-counter situations, we have pharmaceuticals, so like stress relievers that have gone through all the testing, are regulated heavily, anxiety medications that help reduce stress. We are not necessarily looking, and I'm not a vet, so I'm not ever going to be giving specific meds advice, but we are not really looking from a behaviour perspective on medication that just sedates a dog. We're looking for actual stress relieving medications. There are many options available. I always counsel my clients to test it first before stressful events. So we want to be going to the vet now. We want to be trialing medications now. We are likely trialing situational medications, meds that are taken, work within a few hours, and then leave the body within 12 hours or something. So I want you guys to be prioritizing that. And someone's asked, you know, my doctor is reluctant to be giving our dog anything for these phobias. What should we do? We should look for a second opinion, definitely, because if we're seeing dogs who are having like full-blown phobic responses, that can sometimes create, and I got a question about this. The question was, is it normal for dogs' fear to bleed into other things around this period? So the questioner was asking, they were saying, my dog's scared of fireworks, and after the, you know, few fireworks that have been happening in October and the storms, we're now seeing that she's scared of all noises. She's scared, much more nervous of people outside. She's much more nervous of grooming and being touched, and all of these different things are being affected. If we're seeing a veterinary team who's reluctant to provide medical care for that sort of a case, we need to get a different medical team. We need to get a second opinion, sometimes a third opinion. Because we shouldn't have animals living in captivity who are struggling that much on a day-to-day basis with basic things. That's not, for me, a good way to live, personally. That's just my decision as a trainer and as a guardian. I have seen so many times how much help this can give to my own dogs, to my clients' dogs, and I'm always saying, get a second opinion if it doesn't feel right to you. So we've got safety considerations, we've talked through decompression before and after, what that might look like, and we've talked about medication and stress management. The fourth area that we counsel our clients is in comfort. So you can't stop fireworks from happening, you can't stop storm phobias from happening. What can we do? You can stay with them, you can be near them, you can provide them social comfort. If it feels good to them, cuddle them, pet them. If it doesn't, if they're not interested in that, don't force it on them. But for some dogs, they are desperate. They want to be touched. Some dogs will want to hide or hunker down in a particular location. So, for example, Emily, she likes to come upstairs to my room, and she likes to sit in my poodle's crate. That's where she's decided she's the safest. And so we facilitate that for her when we can. And you know, I prepare in advance. If I know there's a storm coming, I will give her medications in advance, invite her upstairs, set her up. I'll put like sound buffering, so maybe radios, drumming music, just something to kind of help buffer the sound. With my Shih Tzu, my parents go into the basement with him because they're lucky enough to have like a quite quiet basement. So can we find a safe space for them, whether that is a room, a floor of the house, a bed with you, a crate, whatever they want, basically, whatever they want, and provide. You can absolutely give them food and cuddles and pets and play with them if that helps. For many, they're kind of beyond that, and we just sit with them and we hope the medication helps, and we keep them safe, and we provide them opportunities to decompress and recover as much as we can. So safety, decompression, medications, and comfort. Those are like the four big things that you can be thinking about with your dogs. I have some questions from the community that I'm going to talk through now. I'm just going to make sure I'm getting all the questions. Yeah, people are saying that, you know, their dogs during the stormy season, they start panicking just hearing wind at a certain point. Imagine living like that. Imagine living where like the wind starts to give you a panic attack. That is a medical challenge that we need to address. And if there are doctors out there who are saying that's not the case, I would be really considering looking for a new doctor. Someone's asked me this question, which was exactly my next one. So how would you suggest, this person's saying, how do you approach helping to build better associations with noises, like using the audio of thunder or fireworks? And I have the same question here. Should we counter condition to these noises? Counter conditioning just means like, should we try and change the dog's response, emotional response and behavior response to the to these noises of fireworks and storms? Yes, my friend. Safety, decompression, medications, and comfort. Think about those 4 things. You'll notice that teaching the dogs to not freak out at the noises is not on that list, because I honestly find that techniques that we use to change how dogs feel about noises don't necessarily work in the same way on thunder and fireworks. From my experience, and I make this personal distinction in my practice, there's a difference between sound sensitivity and sound phobia. And sensitivities are things like my dog is barking at voices outside the front door because my dog is scared of people, or my dog is barking at the sound of dogs barking because they're like, piss off, I don't want you to come near me. There's like a reason that makes sense. With those sorts of noises, those sensitivity noises, we can often teach dogs to respond differently through pairing that noise with food. You might have seen me doing training exercises where our dogs are listening to a doorbell and then settling on their mats or something like that. So we can do that with certain noises, and to my experience, we can do it really successfully with certain noises. Fireworks and storms are not necessarily those noises, from my experience. One, many people's dogs will not respond in the same way to specifically fireworks and storm phobia triggers because so much of the stimulus is outside of our control. It's the vibrations, it's the feeling of the explosion, it's the barometric pressure changes, it's the rain, it's the wind. It's like things that we can't control in counter conditioning setups. Am I saying that I've never done this with storm and fireworks stimulus? No, I have. There are times where I have, but especially on the 22nd of October, I'm not going to necessarily be asking my clients to go out there and start, you know, play the firework noise, give the dog a cookie, because honestly, it doesn't really often do what you need it to do. Instead, this integrative safety, decompression, medications, and comfort routine is going to be your go-to. You're probably going to see better results that way. And when it comes to counter conditioning to noises, often clients will come to us in like Feisty Fido or in our private coaching programs, and they have this huge list of things that the dog struggles with. Fireworks, storms, yes, but also any noise outside the house, voices in the hallway, the doorbell, any knocking noise. They'll not bark at any, anything that they see out the window. If we're doing counter conditioning work, I'm very, very rarely starting with fireworks and storms. I'm like, can you listen to any other noises? Let's start at the bottom and work our way up. So hopefully you're getting an idea as to why kind of this changing the association to the noises through conditioning exercises is not on my list at this point for you guys. But that doesn't mean that it's not something that we might involve. Every case is complex, every case is different, right? One question that I haven't answered is, why is it that some dogs are so scared of fireworks and storms specifically? Like, why is it that I'm doing a live specifically on fireworks and storm phobia? What is that? Why is that? There are many different reasons. There's never just one reason from my experience. It's often multiple things that are going on. Genetics will play a factor in this because these sorts of things can be genetically passed down. And when we're getting dogs from rescues, shelters, or breeding situations that are not ideal, the chances increase. So Emily, who has storm phobia, is a rescue who formerly was free living in Romania, so she was a street dog. And Obi, who also has storm phobia, our other dog, he's a Shih Tzu from a puppy mill. So they didn't have the best genetic start. to begin with. We also often see pain and medical factors being a contributing thing. So if folks work with us, we will use this safety, decompression, medicals, comfort piece, but there's always this question, why? Why is it that this dog is struggling? And often pain and medical factors come into play. So Emily has hip dysplasia and luxating patella, and Obi has luxating patella in both legs. Those are musculoskeletal issues. If you want to learn more about this, our webinar library has a free webinar all about pain and behavior, so you can learn more, but it's a big factor in these cases. Chronic stress is also a big factor. We see lots of dogs who deal with chronic stress on a day-to-day basis with noises, people, dogs, vehicles, travel, all these different triggers they might have. Those dogs are often more likely to also experience thunder and storm and firework issues. So chronic stress, pain, genetics, trauma, and maybe like overexposure in a way that they couldn't handle, but also underexposure, a lack of socialization in pivotal parts of their life to like loud noises, to rain, to wind could also contribute, right? So we see lots of dogs coming from like foreign countries who are not used to this weather, really struggling with the weather that we experience in places like the UK and North America. All right, guys, I'm almost finishing up. There are literally fireworks going off right now. That's really funny because that's literally happening outside my window. Last question that I have, and then I'm going to finish up, is what skills can we build to help sensitive dogs cope with fireworks and storm phobia? Again, skill building takes time. We are dealing with the 22nd of October. There are fireworks going off right now as we speak. So I'm just going to double down on this idea that like think about the integrative factors. But long-term goals for our clients who come to us, who want to resolve this, who want this to not be like consistent stressor on their day-to-day life, we will be teaching skills like safe confinement or a safe space, teaching dogs to retreat there when they are struggling, and to build this like conditioned emotional response of safety within a space that works for you and your family. Chewing, licking and sniffing, so like building the skills of like down regulation, so that if we have so often we start off with a dog who will never eat, after hearing one popping sound. They won't eat for hours. And we can give them the skill of being able to eat and persist through greater adversity, and being able to strengthen the behaviors of eating and chewing and licking and sniffing. That can be really helpful. And then I guess lastly is working on their other triggers, right? So if we have chronic stress coming into the mix, if we have trauma coming into the mix, what can we do to help them in other areas? So I'm often working with fireworks and storm phobic dogs on their other sound triggers, because if we're seeing a dog that's triggered 50 times a day and then there's a storm, you're fucked. Right? So we might not be able to tackle the storm, but we can do everything else. We can work on their issues with strangers, we can work on resource related stuff, we can dive into the relationship between the human and the dog and try to create as secure an attachment as possible so that they can withstand these stressful events, and that your like connection can sustain what can sometimes be a rupture and can be a stressful a stressor for everyone, right? And the last thing I guess is that we also do give the humans skills. It's not just the dogs that need skills, the humans need skills too. So with the humans, we're building like body language reading skills so that they can respond at the earliest whiff. Sometimes I look at Emily and I'm like, why are you acting weird? And then I realize it's become overcast and she's worried that there's going to be a storm. And so sometimes I'm responding preemptively to those little signals to show her, I'm attuned to you, I'm here, I'm helping you, right? So we're giving the guardians these observation skills, the ability to regulate themselves when their dogs are stressed. That is fucking hard sometimes if your dog's panicking. How do you stay calm? How do you keep your body nice and relaxed? Amongst other things as well. Someone's asking if this live will be saved. Yep, I'm going to save it just now. And I think I'm finishing up. So thank you everyone for joining, for listening. You can go back and watch the whole thing if you're just joining now. And just a quick overview. We talked about the kind of 4 areas that we help our guardians with: safety, decompression, medications, and comfort. And we answered some questions, should we be counter conditioning to noises? Is it normal for this fear to bleed? why are dogs scared of these stimulus, and what skills can we use to help them cope. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I'm glad it was helpful. If you are looking for more help, if you need help right now, we offer private coaching. We are actually almost full for the month, but we could probably get you in next month in November and get you prepared for the November-December period. So you can DM me the key, you can just put like the word coaching in my DMs, and I can talk to you a little bit about like what is going on with you and your dog and what we could potentially do to help. And if anyone's got like a longer timeline, like I said, Feisty Fido, our group program for dogs who struggle with all manner of things, including noises, people, dogs, going for walks, that sort of stuff. We do have some spaces available in January, so you could always message me, and I put the word feisty in my DMs, and we can talk a little bit about whether you're a good fit for that. So yeah, thank you so much, my loves, and I guess lastly, join us for this free fucking webinar series. It's starting this weekend. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be like 2 events all about winter with sensitive dogs. So I hope to see you there. You can DM me the words, any of these words, and I will help figure out where you need to go. All right, thank you, my loves. See you soon. Bye.